GQ magazine recently published online an article about MGTOW, and the article itself is something that I'm not going to spend very much time on because there's nothing to really talk about. It's totally substance free. It's something that, I mean, if you really want to examine the contents such as they are, you can take a look at it. And there's also there have also been a few MGTOW content creators who have turned their fire against it and skewered it, and you can watch those videos if you want. The title is probably the best thing about the article. The title is something like MGTOW are the Taliban of the manosphere, which is actually, I mean, they say that like that's a bad thing, but I don't know, that's that sounds, you know, kind of badass in a way. Now, I'm not a MGTOW person myself. I'm MGTOW sympathetic in a lot of ways, but here's the thing I want to say about this this article and what it says about the current state of so-called journalism. GQ magazine is a journal that I suppose, or the way I've always seen it, you know, it always features these handsome, upscale-looking men with, you know, really nice hair and, you know, very expensive, well-fitted clothes. And so it sort of seems to be like the reason for its existence seems to be the appeal to men who want to, I don't know, want to project an elegant sort of masculinity. So it's really strange when you think about it. When you think about the fact that an article like this got into GQ magazine because of what it says about mainstream journalism now. You know, I mean, I could imagine a couple of decades ago there being, you know, a piece maybe written for GQ that was about this subject if MGTOW existed 2 decades ago. But let's just you know, let's say for hypothetical purposes, let's just say it's 1999 and MGTOW exists in some form. If GQ magazine in 1999 ran an article about MGTOW, maybe it would be critical, maybe it would be, you know, not sympathetic, but I have a feeling that it would at least have substance. Like they would at least say things about MGTOW and what they stand for, and they would give examples from you know, MGTOW content creators and summarize what MGTOW means to various people who are in and around it, and then they might follow that up by saying, but here's some problems that we see, this, that, and the other. You know, speaking from the point of view of a men's magazine, a magazine that's ostensibly dedicated to masculine pursuits, masculine interests, you know, it would be entirely appropriate for them to run an article about a men's, I know they don't like to call it a movement, but a men's philosophy. And I think it does qualify as a movement. I don't think that's a bad thing to call it a movement, just because there's a lot of people out there expressing these ideas and beliefs, and so it has the momentum of a movement. I always thought the whole quibble about it not being a movement, I've always found that to be kind of silly. But that's a side issue. So that's what it would have been like a few years ago when journalists still, I don't know, weren't complete and total hacks the way that they've become. This article, again, I guess I'll link to it, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just let you find it if you want to find it, because I don't think it deserves. I don't want to give it any more clicks, you know, if I can help it. But I do think it's interesting enough to talk about. So, but this article, when you read it, if you read it, you'll see this is just BuzzFeed tier stuff. There's absolutely no substance to it. It follows this boilerplate sort of, oh, we're going to talk about a group of people that we don't like politically, and we're going to say that they're so ridiculous and pitiful, and yet they're so awful, and they're really powerful, and they're really, you know, making a lot of strides into the mainstream. So we shouldn't just make fun of them. We should also fear them and take steps to make sure that they don't, that they don't encroach any further upon the mainstream. And now here's a quote from Dr. Deborah Schlossberg of Rutgers University, author of Feminism is Going to Destroy Men, and That's a Good Thing. And Dr. Schlossberg says MGTOW are just insecure because they fear strong women, blah, blah, blah. And here's a quote from Dr. Julie Greenberg of NYU, and she says MGTOW are awful, but the best way to respond to them is to just be more feminist than we ever were before, and so forth and so on. You know, it's just the boilerplate. Fill in the, you know, it's like a Mad Lib. These kinds of articles, these hit pieces, they never actually describe the subject. They never even, you know, it's always just the only thing they say about these people, the people that they're talking about, is how awful they are and how pathetic they are. And then they give quotes from some so-called experts who are really, you know, politically hostile people, and they quote them like that's supposed to bring the article some kind of gravitas, like, oh, here's an academic take on this subject. It's so pathetic. It's so extremely pathetic. And again, I say this as someone who I don't think that MGTOW is above being criticized. I don't think any group, any organization is above critical scrutiny. And there are things that can be said, you know, if you earn the right to say them by showing that you are being fair and showing that you are really examining the subject that you're supposedly writing about, instead of just being insulting and lamely insulting at that, and thinking that this somehow qualifies as content. Again, this article, like so many articles that you'll find about the alt-right, you know, whatever else, men's rights movement people, you know, any other subject, that any other group of people who are deemed to be toxic, you know, this is the way that they will be written about in mainstream articles. You know, this is not, again, this is supposed to, and here it's in a place like GQ, which again, before I suspect GQ totally became unmoored from what it was supposed to be about, and just became another space for screeds against those who don't conform to SJWism of all kinds. And maybe it's still, I don't know, I haven't seen, I don't even know if they still run a print journal. Maybe that they do, and maybe that still, you still have a bunch of dapper looking men, you know, in tweed jackets and trendy hairdos and stuff on, you know, and the, you know, some glossy page with a cologne scent on it and stuff like that. But maybe there's still this manly sort of exterior to it. But the thing is, places like GQ are just, articles like this are just indistinguishable from the trashiest of the, BuzzFeed or worse, tier, salon.com or worse tier articles. And that really says something about the state of things. It really says something about how journalism has become total hackery, paid journalism, I think, of all kinds. It's just, I can't imagine GQ giving money to this guy and saying, okay, just write us a piece about MGTOW, and then he writes this, again, totally substance free. I know I'm repeating myself here. If I were a teacher and I had assigned a research paper and a research paper where the student is supposed to write about the subject and interact with it and really wrestle with it and say what he thinks of it, this would get an F. This would again, there's nothing there. There's nothing there that he talks about. It's just, again, the following the boilerplate hit piece sort of thing. So the state of journalism is for me, what this calls attention to more than anything else. The degenerated state of journalism. And it just strikes me that all mainstream journalism is getting increasingly homogenized, right? There's not, this article doesn't seem to have any of the earmarks of being, this is an article written for a magazine whose target audience is men, right? This just seems like it's just, as I said, totally interchangeable from anything you'd find from any worthless Twitter blue check political extremist type, lefty extremist type. So anyway, that's my take on this article. I guess I will link to it, but let the buyer beware. I tried to warn you that it was awful, and now you will see with your own eyes if you choose to read it. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.